All right, everybody, we are back again for another episode of the Coaches Compass. Remember, it's season 3. Don't know what episode I'm on. I'm just continuing to record, continuing to bring on cool guests from all across the world. And remember, hit that like, subscribe, comment button down below so we continue to have this thing grow, continue to bring on cool guests from all over the world. And like I said, we got another special guest with us today. We got Coach Austin, the head director of Olympic sports performance at Lamar University, mainly working with men's and women's basketball. Coach, thank you and welcome to the Coaches Compass.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So, man, I feel like everybody always asks this, but what got you started in this all? Like, how did you get into the college sector, and what made you want to become a strength and conditioning coach?
I think, having a passion for athletics, starting at a young age, I started playing football in 7th grade. From there, I actually tore my ACL my sophomore year of high school, and then tore it again my freshman year at college. And neither time was I actually playing my sport when I was doing it. But I wanted to go back and play for my senior year of high school, and that kind of gave me a higher appreciation for the weight room and the things that strength and conditioning, athletic training could do outside of, sport practice. So that kind of started my interest, I guess, in the strength and conditioning field. But from there, I started my kinesiology degree my sophomore year of my undergrad. And I actually had a teacher who really kind of invested in the field itself. He had wanted to bring a strength and conditioning major to our school and kind of form an actual curriculum around the profession. He had also had previous students who had become strength coaches. One was working with the 49ers at the time. So that kind of, solidified, this is a real profession. This is something that's super interesting for me. High level of passion for me, and kind of just took off from there. He's the one that kind of sprinkled in, this is the path you need to take, because when you're in undergrad, you're trying to figure everything out, you're learning everything at the same time. And all the stuff you're learning is very technical and lab drawn, right? It's not real world experience.
Right.
And so he's kind of the first one to be like, hey, if you want to get into this profession, you're most likely going to start with an internship and then work as a graduate assistant, and then you'll get your first time position. So that kind of, took it off for me.
What have you taken from what you learned from your ACL injury, trying to come back from that, and also from your former teacher, kind of telling you what the grounds are to kind of build up to what you're doing now, and how do you implement it with your athletes? Because you have a lot of athletes that kind of go through those same breaking points, right? Where you tear ACL, you tear a major ligament or something like that, and you're like, man, maybe sports is over and I'm done with it. But how do you implement what you've learned?
I think one of the biggest things injury wise is just understanding that nobody's path is the same. Nobody's going to heal the exact same way. No one's going to be on the same timeline. So like everybody says, comparison is the thief of joy. So you need to stay on your path, stay consistent, and that consistency is what's going to help you come back. So it really does kind of help that I've been through it to kind of be like, hey, you can't come back. It's not really, even though I've had the 2 ACL surgeries, it's not really something that affects me anymore, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I still jump through the roof. I still squat heavy. It's not, and it's full range of motion. So it's nice to be able to have been through that and be able to say, hey, you can get back to where you were. It's just going to take consistency and effort. As far as the path, it's because I interned at UCLA, and that was it's big time. Everybody's got resources. And then my first position was a part-time position at a D2 where I have no resources, right? So
Right.
that was the biggest thing was, working with what you got and understanding that, it's not about what you do, it's about how you do it. And anything can be done if you put in the time. You don't necessarily need to throw all this money at it to have a successful program. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Why is it though that, we're still at this point to where D1s have so many more resources compared to the D1 AA, D2, D3, NAI levels? I know money is a factor, right? But you have some of these top programs that are putting out really good athletes, but still are kind of forgotten about. What do you think is the missing link in between there outside of money, right? that could help these strength and conditioning jobs and like these athletic departments grow?
I think some of it comes with, I guess, just an understanding of the profession, right? Sometimes, and I'll even say, some D1s compared to other D1s, just don't fund their strength department. We have some schools in our conference, like we're blessed. Don't get me wrong. We have 8 strength and conditioning coaches on staff,
Oh boy.
4 full times and 4 GAs. So we are beyond blessed for the FCS level. So I'll never take that for granted. But we're working against schools that have maybe 2 full times and 1 GA, and we're in the same conference. So I think part of it comes from, do the head coaches of your actual sports teams understand the value that the strength department brings, and are they willing to go to bat for you? I think that's a huge portion, whether they played at a high level and they've seen it, or they've coached at another school at a high level and they've seen the value that that can bring. I think that's the biggest thing, is when your head coaches are having your back and going to your athletic director and saying, we need more time from this person, so we're going to need him to have more help. I think that's a huge thing, and I think that's what's going to continue to step us up. If we invest our time like we continue to do, and do things beyond just the weight room, right? Everybody thinks like we're just the weight coach, and then in the off season, you're not doing anything, right? So if we continue to invest our time outside of the weight room, being in practice, being at games, developing routines with our athletes, I think that's going to continue to show our value, and have coaches kind of go to bat for us.
Sure. I mean, it always helps to have a coach that's been through the ringer, kind of knows what it takes to, develop high level athletes, and also like how important strength and conditioning is, like not only just preseason and like off season, but like even in season, how important it is to have a strength and conditioning coach on staff. But you've been to multiple different places, right? You said like D1 level, D2 level, now you're back at the FCS level. Where do you see the industry going? Like, where do you see strength and conditioning? Like, how is it heading? And listen, I hate talking about the negatives, right? Because everybody's like, oh, there's so much stuff on Instagram. You can get this, and this, that, there,
Yeah.
right? But what's going great in the industry that you've been seeing over the years that's kind of elevated it?
I think kind of what I just touched on is we're doing more. We're not just the weight room coach anymore. We're not just there in the off season and then you only see us when you come to us in the weight room. We're at practice. Depending on whether you have a registered dietitian on staff, you might be taking kind of that role too. We're getting more face time with the athletes, and I think that's what's going to continue to bring value to our profession. We've always cared for them, but being able to be there more often and have them see that you're a resource for them, I think that's what's going to continue to take us higher. That's what I'm seeing more of, is just more strength coaches branching out and trying to wear more hats. you know Never going to say I'm going to fill an RD position, because they know way more than I do, but being able to, just give quick tips. You'd be surprised how many D1 athletes don't understand what carbs or protein is, what a protein source is or a carb source is. So, and, then they want to go on no carb diets, and you're like, hold on, well, let's bump the brakes.
Carnivore diet. Let me get on this, the keto and all that. Yeah, I'm trying to look good for the summer, but bro, you got to perform for the season.
Exactly. So I think that's the biggest thing that I'm loving, is we're doing more, and it seems like, at least from my side, I've got wonderful coaches that got my back, and continue to, I don't want to say put more on my plate, but give me more responsibilities, because they understand what I can bring to the team.
That's awesome, man. You always love it when they're kind of trusting in you more, right? Because the more they're putting on your plate, that means that they trust in what you're doing and also believe in what you're doing. So that's also giving you more of a backbone to do what you're doing. What are some of the technologies you're using, right? Because everybody knows, there's the VBTs, there's the jump mats, there's the valve, there's the this, that, and the other. What are some of the kind of technology systems that you kind of harp on and use, or kind of your main practices and what you're programming?
So I was using the jump mats for a while. We actually at Lamar didn't really have too much technology until this past year, where we kind of stepped it up a little bit. So in the past, we really just had the jump mats. We had got in football onto Catapult, and women's soccer onto Catapult. Haven't done that with the basketball teams quite yet. It is something I want to do, but again, comes down to budgetary things.
Process, you know.
Exactly. Year by year, we're always stepping it up, and we actually we built a basketball only weight room in the last year, so that kind of took the priority, right? Having a space that's available for them. Working around class schedules was a huge thing, so that's helped us a lot, especially with this past off season. So previously, just used the jump mats. We actually just got Tendo units for every rack, but that's for the main weight room, and that was paid for by football. So I don't have access to those right now, but that would be kind of like the primary thing I would use. The jump mats I used mostly for like readiness testing. Obviously, we know kind of jump mats are a little inflated, when it
Right.
comes to numbers. And I did see a study that has a kind of a correction formula for that. So I was using that for a little bit, and it did get a little bit closer to their actual verts. But again, was just using that more for a readiness test. We did have a donor for my women's team reach out and work on getting the whole team Whoop bands. So that's kind of been something technology wise that we've been able to use. I wouldn't say it really shapes my training too much in the off season. It semi does, but again, it's more of a readiness thing for me. When I get those recovery scores and I see that, you did sleep 8+ hours and you're still, got a poor recovery score, then maybe we're doing too much, and that's like a team average kind of thing. But biggest thing that I love about the Whoop bands is it helps the kids kind of be more intentional with their sleep. They see those things where normally they'd be like, I was sitting in bed for 9+ hours. Well, yeah, the first 2 hours you were on your phone the whole time, and then you slept and you were tossing and turning the whole time. You really only got 5 hours of sleep, So it's helped us for our women's team be more intentional and really, again, educate. It's just another tool for us to continue to educate them on things that we think everybody knows, and then you talk to them and they're like, nah.
Nah, I don't really know what you're talking about, coach. You're talking about I need 8 hours of sleep to have properly recover. What you mean? Like, I'm good. I'm like
Exactly.
19, 20. Like, I don't need all that extra stuff. Like,
Right.
you talking crazy, dog. I got things to do. I'm a college student. My first time getting some freedom. I want to go out there and do what I got to do. But, I
100%.
know a lot of coaches that we've talked to, have said that technology has either helped or hurt. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people get to the technology and not really know the databases of what they're trying to track and what they're using and whatnot. But it sounds like you have a good hand on what you're doing. On top of that, who are some of the mentors or some of the coaches that you're kind of looking up in the industry and like kind of following what they're doing, but taking pieces from what they're doing and also learning from?
So my first mentor was Frank Wintrick, and that's somebody who I really shaped kind of my coaching philosophy around. So when I was at UCLA, I did work football. So there's not a lot of training things that I can kind of blend into basketball. There's some, but different sport. Got to train them differently, right? But as far as coaching philosophy and caring about your athletes, though, he's really the first one that kind of put those things in my head and gave me the tools and the understanding of no one cares about how much you know until they know about how much you care, right? So he was the first one to give me that, and that was monumental in my career. From there, basketball wise, Coach Allen Bishop, huge influence. He's kind of helped me since I actually applied for this position. He worked with my men's Coach Brooks, when he was at Houston. So I had reached out when I was applying for this position to, kind of get some feedback, understand more about Coach Brooks. What is he looking for his team and those kinds of things. So he's been huge. I love Anthony Cockrell as well. He
That's a
actually,
dog. I've been hearing the name over and over and over again.
yeah,
Anthony.
he's a smart man,
Yeah.
way smarter than I am. That's for sure. He actually, when I first became a GA at Lamar, we held like a small conference where we had like 3 people kind of present to us, and he came over and did that, and I was just mind blown. That was one of the craziest talks that I've been a part of. And then I just finished strength deficit. That Tim is a very personable
Yeah.
person. I
Yeah.
know you had him
Tim's
on here.
that dog.
He's gonna work, that's for sure. So I think those are some big people that not just their social media, but like the things talking to them, the things that they care about, and the investment in the science side of what we do is a huge thing for me. That's kind of why I love this profession. Is I've always been like a math science guy, and you can really break down what we do into physics, science, mathematics, and that's a huge thing for me.
Yeah, for sure. And this question right here is from a previous guest that we had. What is something that you did in the past that you have either debunked or completely abandoned
Everybody's got a back squat.
now?
I used to be like, nah, you have to do this. Like, there's no way, like, this is the best thing for your lower body. We got to do it. And like my first year, I was fighting just to have kids get to depth because, they've got long limbs. And I was
Yeah.
like, come on, man, like we could just do mobility stuff. Like, we'll get you there. And I was sitting there and I'm like, we're wasting time trying to get you into a position that you're not going to be in on the court, when all I have to do is just change your center of gravity by moving the bar and you can get to full range of motion. So that was a huge one for me where I just kind of like sat there and I was like, damn, like I just kind of wasted time. Like I definitely did not need to be doing this the whole time. And I have a women's basketball player that broke our back squat record, like school program record, and she broke it twice. She broke it the first time and then broke her own. And now, like every off season, she's like, "So when are we back squatting again?" And I was like,
Like we moved on.
Exactly. So I was like, if you want to come in on your own, like I'm sure you're gonna beat it again because you've gotten stronger. But we're not gonna do that as a team anymore. There's different ways we can go about training your lower body.
What's it been like to kind of take out back squatting, working with some athletes that maybe have done it for so long, like from the programs that they've come for, but also, you got athletes that come in day one that maybe haven't had like a full true strength and conditioning coach. So what's it been like to kind of, piece things together for some of those new ones and some of the ones that kind of just was stuck in, the old regimen?
Yeah, I'll say that's part of why I love basketball is I have max 15 kids on each team. So I really get to hone in on those kinds of things. Beaumont is also a pretty small town. So we have, local coaches that come around and I'm always asked, like, what do I need to get stronger at? What is this? What are these things? And form is the biggest thing that I need you to work on when you're in high school. If you come in with good form, I don't care how strong you are, you're going to get strong. Right. But if we're spending the first 4 months that I have you just teaching you how to use your body, that's going to take up more time. Right. That takes way more intent than it does to just move a bar. So if we can get more high school kids honed in on, practicing proper form, the weight will come. I'm a small guy. I had to do the same thing. So if you practice good form, the weight will come after time. So that's a huge one. As far as like changing up the back squat, basketball kids, especially nowadays, I mean, they don't love the weight room, most of them.
Majority don't hate that.
Exactly. So, I don't really get any, pushback on not having a back squat in there. But I will say that, we do have some kids that, especially this year on both sides, they really understand the value. They may not love it, and I don't need you to love it. But as long as you understand the value that it brings and the fact that it's going to help you stay healthy, it can improve your game if we're doing it the right way. You understanding those things and putting intent into the weight room, that's all I can ask for.
As long as you get the buy-in, right? As long as you can get them just to follow the structure of what you're trying to do and how it will help them out. I'm sure it always helps out. What is something you'd like us to ask our next guest?
Ooh, you got me there. Let me think. I guess what in the strength and conditioning industry, what do you want to see change next?
And what would it be for you?
I think that if we can continue to grow the way we are and continue to bring value, being able to hone in on specific sports, right? Like everybody understands that football and basketballs are going to get, their specific strength coach, right? And then they'll have smaller Olympic teams on the side most of the time. But being able to do that more often and really hone in, like, all right, this is a track and field strength coach, this is a baseball strength coach, softball strength coach, soccer strength coach, being able to do that and really be specific, and not just because you played the sport and that's why, but because you've studied the biomechanics, you've sat down and taken the time to go over their GPS data and their specific yardage that they get in average weeks at the pro level, those kinds of things. I think that'll be huge for us if we can continue to kind of specify, because that's going to show more value of what we can do. And that'll give, our head sport coaches kind of more of a leg to stand on when they're trying to go to bat for you. Like, they bring in these kinds of things. They're helping this team this much, those kinds. So I think that's
and obviously it happens when you go to the higher levels, right? Like when you get professional, every one of those professional teams has their own strength and conditioning coach. And it's starting to trickle down, I guess, a little bit to the college level, depending on what level that you're at. But you would love to see it happen for all, because it just creates more jobs, creates more opportunities. It creates better athletes down the line. And then maybe an athlete from there wants to go into the same field or study a little bit more. You never know what can happen, but I fully agree. I feel like there needs to be jobs that are open up. And also, it kind of frees up the coaches to kind of do what they actually are passionate about, instead of trying to think of a program and like trying to balance out so many different sports and trying to figure out where they're at with tracking all these different types of things. And sometimes you get tired, right? And everyone's kind of following the same program. But again, you had everybody getting an equal opportunity. I think it would be really awesome to see, like you said. But Coach, I want to say thank you and appreciate you jumping on today, man. It was a pleasure to have you on. Best of luck today. Best of luck in making the tournament, and can't wait to follow your journey, man.
I really appreciate it. This was awesome. I really appreciate you reaching out and having me on here.
Of course, man. Have a good one.
You too.